Hey there, everybody. Today's podcast is actually a re-release of an interview I did with Jonathan Kaplan, a good friend and director, and really a mentor, who unfortunately passed away last week after a brief illness. Jonathan, as you'll hear, is just an amazing guy with an amazing story. Has lived 1,000 lives, and was really the entire reason that I started directing, because he basically pushed me into it, and was the kind of guy who on day one of my first episode sat next to me the entire day, never got in my way, never tried to get in there and tell me what to do, but was always there as someone to bounce ideas off of and double check with. And at the end of the day, I remember thanking him and saying, "So you be back tomorrow?" And he said, "Hell no, I got things to do. You're the director, direct." And that was just who he was. He was a really good friend, like I said, a mentor, one of the best directors I've ever worked with, one of the best storytellers I've ever worked with, and I've almost never seen a director work with actors the way that he did. They all loved him. He could be a tough guy to work with. He was a screamer because he had no filter, but he also had the biggest heart in the world, and he would go to the end of the world for people. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the podcast, and if you knew him, you knew what a great guy he was, and if you didn't, this will give you a taste, and I'm sorry you missed getting to know him. Jonathan, thank you for everything. You are missed, and I can honestly say I would not be the filmmaker that I am if it wasn't for you. Thanks. On today's episode, we talk about learning from Elia Kazan, hanging up on Roger Corman, The Accused, ER, and of course, Barbra Streisand's light meter. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out The Breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, The Musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds.
Hey everybody, Danny Brown here, creator of the Knuckle Puck, and we at Knuckle Puck Camera are proud supporters of this episode of The Op. The Knuckle Puck is a camera accessory loved by operators and camera assistants alike that allows the operator to pan and tilt with precision and ease. Check it out at knucklepuckcamera.com and make sure to follow us on Instagram at knucklepuckcamera.
Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy The Op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll. Rolling.
Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operators and the art of visual storytelling. I'm your host, Dave Kamaitis, and I'm really excited today. I have a great guest here and a friend, Jonathan Kaplan, an incredible director, producer, writer? You're a writer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Director, producer, writer. Actor? You're an actor? You were an actor? We're going to talk about that?
I was, yeah.
Some of his many credits include TV, Law & Order, SVU, Without a Trace, ER, which he had 5 Emmy nominations for directing and producing. Music videos, John Cougar, Mellencamp, John Mellencamp, and John Cougar, all of them when he was named all those things probably.
Yes.
Barbra Streisand, Rod Stewart. Movies, Brokedown Palace, Love Field with Michelle Pfeiffer, who was nominated for an Academy Award for that, and it was nominated for the Golden Bear at the Berlin International Film Festival, which is like the top of the top, right? The
It's
best,
pretty good.
best picture. The Accused, which was also nominated for the Golden Bear, and also Jodie Foster for an Oscar, but she won for Best Actress. Heart Like a Wheel, Truck Turner, Night Call Nurses. At NYU, he made a movie called Stanley, which won the Best Film at the National Student Film Festival, and other notables, miniseries In Cold Blood, Immediate Family, Unlawful Entry. It goes on and on. Jonathan, thank you for being
Over
here.
the Edge.
Over the Edge, I forgot. Over the Edge, which we're going to talk about. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Actually, I'm in Jonathan's house, so thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome.
Jonathan and I go way back, and actually he's a wonderful guy and a friend, so there may be a lot of inside jokes that I'll have to explain afterwards. So in 2.5 minutes, tell me your entire story. How'd you get here?
Well, my
my parents were both in show business.
Yeah.
My mother's was Frances Heflin, who's the sister of Van Heflin, the movie star, and she's an actress, and she was on this soap opera called All My Children, and she was on it for 23 years.
So
And-
just when it was in its infancy.
Yeah,
'Cause
no,
it's like
she was on the pilot.
72 years old now or something like that, the show. But
Yeah, the
wow.
show's over.
She did 23 years. She
23
was on
years,
the show.
yeah.
Wow.
Which was she, and my father was Sal Kaplan, who was a film composer, and was blacklisted, and so my mother's soap opera job basically supported us. 'Cause he
Blacklisted,
couldn't-
like you mean during the communist
the
scare?
Un-American
Blacklisted.
Activities Committee. yes.
Wow.
And so basically, my first experience of film was sitting on my mother's lap at Fox, watching my father conduct a 40-piece orchestra.
Oh, wow. How old were you? You remember?
4.
That's so. You remember this well?
Yeah, well, yeah, because I thought that going to the movies at that age, I thought that meant going to where there was an orchestra.
That's
Because the big feature of that was the orchestra.
Do you remember what movie it was? Well, you're
No,
4.
I-
Okay, yeah.
But I remember that
That's so cool.
he was conducting to this black and white work print, which had what's called the Newman method, which is these stripes and punches on the film that cue time signature. And this is
Oh, wow.
before click tracks. I mean, it's maybe
No,
click
that's-
tracks is what all sessions have now. which is
Yeah.
basic, and have had for decades. It's basically the tempo.
But it was visual back then.
But
is
it was
what you're
the
saying.
conductor. It was all on the conductor.
Wow.
So he would, but he on the, so you'd see the picture was the movie, was the cue,
Yeah.
right? But it had stripes, which were with grease pencil stripes and punches, hole punches, which was code to him. His mentor, Alfred Newman, the head of the Fox Music Department, designed the system. And,
Wow.
And so, yeah.
So who put the grease pen?
The music editor.
The music editor would,
Yeah.
would say, "Here's where it should come up, and this is where
with
it should."
the composer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And time signature change in movie composition is how you control where the hits come. If there's certain things that have to synchronize with certain visual.
Yeah. The dun 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 dun.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or going up the stairs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so
That's cool.
yeah, so my first, I didn't think the picture was not the point when I was 4 years old in my mother's lap. It was just that picture was sort of interesting for all these grease pencil marks and pops going on, but it was basically my father conducting this orchestra.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so my father was blacklisted, and we left Hollywood and moved to New York because basically my mother could get work as an actress in live television back then.
Okay.
There was the shows like Playhouse 90 and Armstrong Circle Theater.
Okay.
And plus my mother had worked in the New York theater, so most of the people that were working in live television had come from the New York theater. Anyway, long story short, she got 2 jobs and then got calls the night before each rehearsal was supposed to begin on each job asking, "Are you Mrs. Sal Kaplan?" And so she was blacklisted.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know any. I mean, I knew some of this, but I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. No, it was.
So she just got put on a do not call list, essentially.
Well,
Yeah.
she won't be. She would. It was. Anyway.
Yeah.
So now it was 1957, and we were. My father was giving piano lessons and doing orchestrating. Ghost orchestrating. And that's how, so my mother got a call, her agent got a call to come to meet on an understudy job on a play, The Dark at the Top of the Stairs, which is written by William Inge and directed by Elia Kazan.
Oh, wow.
And Kazan had been, my mother had worked for Kazan on the stage in the 40s.
Okay.
And he was a friend, and he basically named my father because Kazan was the first major stool pigeon.
Yeah.
So I went with my mother to the audition because just childcare. I was 10 years old. And I was sitting in the wings. This is the Music Box Theater in New York. And I heard Gadge's voice, which I recognized because he used to
But
come.
Gadge is
Elia Kazan.
that's his nickname or whatever. Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Yeah.
And I heard Gadge's voice, which I recognized because he used to come play poker at our house. And he had this. I had this relationship with him, which was he smoked cigars, and he had this little tiny guillotine, which cut the tip off the cigars, and he used to let me do that.
Which, when you're a kid, is a big deal.
When I was 7 years old, it was like the coolest thing ever.
That's great.
And he was warm and lovely, So I just knew Gadge, and then so I recognized his voice, and then my mother talks to him for a minute, and then she comes and motions me to come out on stage, and there's Gadge, and he's basically. So what happened was he felt incredibly guilty for having basically destroyed our lives,
right?
And so he was giving my mother this understudy job to understudy Teresa Wright and Eileen Heckart in The Dark at the Top of the Stairs, just to funnel money. And I was the same age as the kid in the show, so he said, "Where I had to memorize a Shakespearean monologue and come back." And I remember him saying, "Do you know what a ham actor is?" And so I had to come back and badly do this, but memorize Fred's Romans Countryman.
Oh.
So I at the time I didn't know it, but I obviously had the job already. So I was hired as the understudy of the kid, just a way for him to funnel more money to us.
Wow.
But because I had a previous relationship with him, and one way for him to assuage his guilt further was and I was just peppering him with questions, because the whole thing, I didn't know what a director did. I didn't know anything, but here I am for all the rehearsals and the whole process of Dark at the Top of the Stairs, which also had Teresa Wright, Eileen Heckart, Pat Hingle, and basically I got to sit next to Gadge and just for the whole,
because you had nothing else to do, right?
No, because I was there. My mother, and understudies are supposed to watch the rehearsals, so. And I mean, there people like Sandy Dennis was an understudy who then took over the role, and so I didn't know I was getting the greatest education in directing actors and directing in general.
Yeah,
but that's how I.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. And what, you were 10?
10.
But but enough of this sunk in that you still remember these. You understood enough, or
I didn't.
You weren't trying to, obviously.
It's just in my bones.
Yeah. Wow. And what
I learned was specifically. Is that what you're gonna?
No, but go.
Well, I mean, what I saw was how he had this system where there'd be group rehearsals during the day, or specific acts, or whatever. But then at night, every night of the week was a different actor. So in other words, like Monday would be Teresa's, right? Pat Hingle was Tuesday, whatever they need, but even the small roles. And he would just be there. After dinner, he'd just be there until they said they'd had enough.
Just to finesse their
whatever
particular
your questions
performance.
are, stuff he wanted to go over.
Wow.
But what I got from that was how different he was, given who he was dealing with.
Yeah.
It wasn't
because you saw him dealing with each person.
Yeah, and what they needed or did. So with one actor, he'd be particularly sort of strict and authoritarian.
Yeah.
And with another actor, he'd be the opposite. He'd be completely collaborative, or he was always collaborative, but he would be more, just deferential.
Well, he was a chameleon to whatever they needed him to be.
So that's what I learned. It's not your ego. Yeah. It's theirs.
It's interesting because now that you say that, having worked with you so much and watching you direct it, I recognize that in you, definitely.
Yeah.
Without knowing it, I mean, now you say that. Looking back, was he as exceptional? I mean, was he exceptional? I mean,
well, I didn't know.
You didn't know at the time, but that's what I'm saying. Now looking back, do you see?
Listen, I worked. I had a charmed education because my parents were very friendly with Martin Ritt, the director, and Marty. I got to my mother was hired on a movie called The Molly Maguires, which Marty directed. This was in '67, I think. And I got to go. They were shooting in the summer, and I got to go and hang out and watching how Marty worked with actors. Of course, it was a movie and not a play, so it was different.
Yeah.
But Marty was much less sort of. Marty was more hands off. Marty would sort of wait and watch and see. Of course, he was working with Sean Connery and Richard Harrison, so there was a certain deference you had.
Of course.
But I mean, I just saw how Marty got his way, and I saw how Marty guided things in a quieter way. But Gadge was when I worked with him on Dark Top of the Stairs, he was already
A huge
he's infamous for having named names, but he was basically huge.
Wow.
This was after.
I actually want to ask you all about that, but that'll take us off the rails. So maybe I'll ask you about that some other time.
Right.
That's fascinating. Just out of curiosity, though, I mean, but he clearly understood that was he being pressed, and that's why he named names. I mean,
Marty, Gadge.
Yeah.
That's
fascinating.
I mean, his autobiography, he tries to explain it. And I became friendly with his son, and we talked about it ad infinitum.
I'm sure.
And but basically, I'm very proud of the fact that my father. How many times in life does anyone get tested like that? Maybe never.
Most people never get tested.
Right.
I mean, that's it's unbelievable.
And it basically was your career versus.
Sorry, but just because your father was brought up and he did not say anything. He said, "I don't know anybody," and
he refused to.
He refused to cooperate. Yeah. No, I would say almost no one gets tested to that level.
Right.
And wow, that's.
And it's it's literally a choice of career.
Yeah.
Versus doing the right thing.
Well, yeah, and keeping your ethos in check and being able to wake up in the morning. That's incredible. That's incredible.
But so I was the collateral beneficiary of Gadge's bad decision.
Wow. Who saw that coming?
Yeah.
And so then you went to NYU, obviously. So when did you make the decision to become a filmmaker, or was that kind of?
I basically, because of my experience. I guess because of my father's experience and just seeing. I mean, my main experience with my father was him out of work.
Yeah.
And how cruel the business had been to him. And watching him, get whatever creative satisfaction he could vicariously out of I orchestrated that,
Oh yeah.
And he would do some ghostwriting and stuff. And my father was a classically trained musician. He and Leonard Bernstein were the only two students who graduated in 3 degrees from the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia, which was conducting, composition, and piano. So, and here was Lenny's career versus my father's non-career, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was not looking to go into show business because my experience of it was just
horrible.
Yeah, horrible. Right. So I went to the University of Chicago and I got kicked out for protesting the war in Vietnam. I was in SDS, and so I found myself basically where, in order to protect my draft status, I needed to be in school
somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a friend of mine said, you should go to NYU film school. It wasn't, it's NYU major in film.
Yeah.
Because you just got to watch movies. It's easy.
So it was an easy way to stay out of Vietnam.
Keep from being killed. Right. Right.
Wow. Wait, just out of curiosity, you were thrown out for protesting?
Yes, yeah.
For doing something specific or just for protesting?
No, we took over the administration building.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, good for you.
Yeah. No, it was great. I mean, it was great because the university sort of just didn't really think we were just these crazed hippies.
Yeah.
And Dick Gregory was leading this whole thing against the University of Chicago being one of the biggest slumlords on the south and west side.
Yeah.
So he brought the community into the administration building, and that's when they said, "Uh-oh,
we're in trouble.
We better throw these fuckers out of here.
These have to get out of here."
Right.
That's great.
So I was one of the University of Chicago 51. There were 51 of us that were expelled.
Okay, all right. I didn't know that. So you went to NYU.
Right.
Nobody ever came out of NYU. Nobody good.
I was, it was, so I went there and I just thought, okay, I'll watch movies.
Yeah,
And
sure.
And my teacher, first year production teacher, was a guy named Harry Hurwitz, who maybe people have seen his movie The Projectionist with Chuck McCann. Harry was wonderful,
Yeah.
and he was a great teacher.
Yeah.
And so suddenly I'm here with a class of about 15 people, and he's, and I'm kind of looking around, going, like, these are the future filmmakers of America. I didn't call them filmmakers. These are the future directors of America.
And you weren't there to be a director. You
No,
were there to
I
watch movies and not go to Vietnam.
Sent to Vietnam. And so Harry said, we're supposed to do these sight and sound exercises, and if we pool all our film, we can make a feature film.
That's great.
So everyone will get to direct one scene, and so it worked out that was like there were only like 4 of us that stuck to it, and so my first year we made this movie, which was called These Raging Loins, because Harry always had his eye on the commercial aspect of what
it's These Raging Loins.
Yeah, the idea was we'd make this movie with him, and then he'd sell it to somebody.
Of course,
right? Which he did, and then he was no longer hired at NYU. But in that class was Janie Anderson, the cameraman.
Yep.
Do you ever work with?
I haven't worked with, but I know the name.
Yeah. So basically, it was like just the 5 of us that gave a shit ended up learning so much from doing that, right? Yeah. And so then the next year, our production teacher was Scorsese. So
Martin
Scorsese, yes, Marty, and that Marty was fantastic.
And he had done what at that point? Like
he'd made a feature film called Who's That Knocking?
Oh, so he was basically just a professor. He wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he was basically this. Haig Manoogian ran the film school, and Marty was sort of his star student. But De Palma was there, and I think they were graduate students. But Marty, was teaching, and it was wonderful. Basically, Marty's class was he'd show the movie, he'd pick a movie, show it, and you're not allowed to take notes or anything, just watch the movie, and then he'd get up on the desk and carry on. I mean, Marty acted out stuff.
He'd just talk about the movie.
And if you've ever seen Marty talks so rapidly, and it was just completely entertaining. And then he'd run the picture again. So this class was like 6 hours with breaks, but still. So the movie was his notes about the movie. He's telling you about the movie, but also he'd just seen it. So now, so quick, it was the best way to teach film.
That's incredible.
So you're looking at it so soon after you've seen it that now you can look at how's the camera moving and where's the music coming in, and
wow, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
And then you made a student film while you were there, right? I made a
student film that won, it shared the prize with 4 other films. It was the Schlitz National Student Film Festival.
Schlitz beer.
It's defunct.
It's defunct.
But they were looking to expand in the youth market.
That's great.
And so it was a 1970 Schlitz prize.
Did you get beer as a prize?
No, I got a pewter stein. Beer stein with my name etched in it. The name of the movie.
Do you still have it?
No. That my first wife has it back.
Okay. Well, we'll move on from that. Well, that must have been unbelievable. Was that sort of like, oh, I've made it kind of thing?
Well, yeah, and that was an education, because basically it's all an education. But basically, you think, okay, Hollywood will be calling.
You just keep looking at the phone.
Yeah. No. So I was working. I was teaching at NYU. I was quasi teaching. I was sort of assistant teaching editing, and the NYU had great editing teachers. Dee Allen, Allen, and Carl Lerner.
Carl
Lerner's a great editor. Okay. And Carl was editing Clute at the time, and he invited us. And Carl was sort of like he said, I can't have a big group, so he sort of got who was really interested. Yeah. So there are like 5 of us, because Pakula would have a screening every Friday. and Pakula let Carl could bring some
Alan Pakula, the director. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, and he would
Producer
allow
director.
people to come,
Right.
his students to come watch.
Right.
Gotcha.
So I got to see the actual process by which
Wow.
Carl collaborated. Carl was so respected, but Carl basically, they took the movie. I don't know if you remember Clute, but basically,
Vaguely,
it's Gordon Willis's first feature.
Okay, yeah,
and or second feature.
Yeah,
and Carl basically with every cut kept dropping dialogue, specifically Donald Sutherland's dialogue. So Clute is sort of one of these cinema archetypes now, the strong silent type. But he was the strong talkative type when he first started. And I mean, Jane Fonda won the Academy. She's brilliant. But it was amazing to watch the process.
Did you go over several Fridays? Like you would
every Friday,
and basically
not almost every.
Yeah,
Friday.
but so it was Pakula and him basically. Pakula giving him notes on what he wanted and what he didn't want.
Yeah,
whatever, so.
Yeah. It was. I mean, we weren't in the meetings afterwards.
I got you.
But we got to see the
progression.
And Carl would tell us what.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, that must have been incredible.
Oh, it was
like
incredible.
You said. Yeah.
And what happened in the movie, Jane Fonda has several scenes with a shrink, who's specifically a shrink who works with prostitutes, and that wasn't in the movie initially, but they all sort of perceived that the problem was with the movie was that Jane's character had no self-awareness or didn't exhibit any self-awareness, and so they improvised these scenes with a real shrink.
Oh wow!
And Carl suggested he said, "Just we'll cut it. Don't worry about it. Just go." And those are pivotal scenes in the movie. And so we got to see that kind of, organic sort of creation of a movie, even after production.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it was all, it was all just this incredible education.
Yeah.
So, but from the camera point of view,
yeah,
I need to go back to Marty Ritt because the Molly Maguires was shot by James Wong Howe.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes, and James Wong Howe and Marty they collaborated a lot. And HUD is maybe James Wong Howe, one of his more famous, and Marty directed HUD. And so, but Jimmy, as they called him, Jimmy Wong Howe, he loved kids, and I was, I don't know, I was 19 or something, but I got to hang with kids.
Okay.
Because my sister was there and she was younger.
And how old is he? Is he in his 60s? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the big thing, and so I got to sort of hang out with Jimmy Wong Howe, and he wasn't interested in talking about camera or the movie. He had all these games that he would play, like he'd do card tricks and he'd do, and that's how he entertained himself.
That's great.
But his main interest on Molly Maguires was he was using 9 lights, and it was he was basically using what they called a TV package to shoot a feature film.
Okay.
And here was this guy in his 60s who wanted to show how nimble and
how fast he could be at lighting and whatever.
And I got to see twice, how this guy was on another level. We had to do a reshoot in this street in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, which they covered with dirt and they buried the lamppost. It was like, take it back to the 18 whatevers.
Yeah.
And so we're doing this. It had to match what we shot before.
Yeah.
There had been some problem in the lab, and they had to redo a
shot.
So
they're matching something
right.
Like
and just before we start shooting, Jimmy, who never raised his voice, said, "Hold on," and he says, "Second story over there, like that. Lower your shade."
Like deep across the street or something.
Like a shade.
A shade on a window.
And he didn't. He wasn't. There was no visual.
There's no video assist. It's just him looking at the.
Just him remembering.
Really.
And of course he was right. And then another time,
you're saying not from a lighting point of view, from a matching point of view. That's incredible. Yeah, and he has no stills. He has no.
It was too quick. It wasn't like you've been studying something. So wait a minute. He just did this sort of last minute scan before we started.
And this
rolling.
is something deep in the background, obviously.
Across the street.
Wow.
And he did the same thing in the courthouse 2 days running, where it was the same setup from behind the judge, and you're looking at the audience at the in the gallery, and he said, "Second row, lady, you put on a hat." She said, "Oh, yes, I found this in my attic. Take it off."
Take it off. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. James Wong Howe. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's
I'm telling you, man.
I didn't know that. That's like old Hollywood there.
I'm very lucky.
Yeah. But eventually Hollywood did call you, right?
Yes. Marty Scorsese recommended me to Roger Corman.
And when you say Roger Corman, you mean the Roger Corman, or not the company, but the Roger Corman?
No.
This is back when
Marty
he was
doing
involved.
a Boxcar Bertha, which is a little known picture. It's a really good picture. Yeah. And Roger was producing
for Corman. Yeah.
For Corman. And Roger's new bride, Julie, was producing or associate producer, whatever, Boxcar Bertha. And she was getting ready after that to do the second or third in the nurses cycle for Roger, which was New World Pictures was Roger's company.
Yeah.
And so they had a director, but he had a falling out. He'd written the script, but he had a falling out with Roger. So they were looking for a director. So Julie asked Marty, could he recommend someone? And he recommended me. So I was working at the Phil Maurice at the time, and I was also trying to get into the editor. I was hoping to get into the editors. I was a sort of an apprentice editor, and I got home from the Fillmore. It was 4 a.m, and the phone rings, and it's Roger Corman. I said, "This is Roger Corman." Roger has this very announcerly voice. It's Roger Corman, and Martin Scorsese has recommended you. And I would,
Did you know who Roger Corman was at this point?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, film students, Roger.
I don't know how well people knew back then or whatever.
Well, and I had a group of friends, one of whom, John Davison, who's big Hollywood producer, and he produced RoboCop, among others. Okay. And John was a huge Roger Corman fan, so he was like, always recommending Roger's movies, and Roger had been to New York, had actually been to NYU, not that pretty recently to talk to the film students.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, so it's this is Roger Corman. It's an announcerly voice, and we'd have to come to Hollywood to direct the third in our nurses cycle, Night Call Nurses. And I thought it was John Davison. I thought,
messing around with
it. Yeah, he's fine. And I said, yeah, fine, all right, fuck you. Yeah. Right? Phone rings back. Young man, there are people lined up from here to London.
Wait, did you hang up on him?
I hung up on him. I thought it was John. It's 4 a.m. I'm exhausted.
That's so great.
Yeah. So, young man, there are people lined up from here to London. That line I will never forget. Can you direct, I basically. So I said, "Can you come and direct this?" And I said, "Well, I was just like suddenly, oh my God, this really is."
I screwed up. Yeah.
This is my opportunity. This is it. Yeah, exactly. So I say, I don't have a driver's license, and the other day, I'm just like starting just get this anxiety riff, and he says, "I'm not asking you to be the Teamster captain. I'm asking you, can you direct?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I can direct. No problem."
Great. And how old are you at this point? Mid-20s?
Yeah, let me see. 72. So I was born in 47, so whatever that is.
25. Yeah, I think. That's incredible. So you came out. Now, when you came out to LA, was this the place down in Venice? Was he there?
No, he didn't have that yet.
He didn't have that yet.
This was the building next to Tower Records on Sunset Boulevard.
Oh, and it was like a studio. It was just a warehouse or something.
He had the penthouse.
Yeah,
there was no studio there. It was just a production office.
Oh, so they were shooting on locations and whatever. He didn't have a studio. Yeah. Okay, all right. So you came out and you directed this movie.
And so I got hired to direct Night Call Nurses, and I was like, I had 15 days was the schedule.
You remember the budget?
$75,000.
Which was a lot at that time, or nothing?
Well, I didn't know, but
for you,
it is doable. Yeah. So I immediately got John Davison, who was the Roger Corman expert, to come out and work, because Roger he basically said, "I need you to rewrite the script And I understand you're an editor, so you can edit the movie, and I'll pay you $9,000. So I said fine. Later on I said I think I'll need a co-editor, and I said I need someone to help if I'm going to be, because I immediately then went into casting. But how can I rewrite the script? So I got John out to rewrite the script. So John helped. John was enormously helpful because he said, I said, how am I going to do this in 15 days? He said, why don't you ask him to screen the other two nurses' pictures for you? Well, yeah, that's a good idea. So the minute I saw them, I realized, they do a lot of scenes in one shot.
One shot, yeah. Mm-hmm. This sounds very much like, do you know Andy Romanoff?
No.
Andy Romanoff was the guy who brought the Lumicrane to the United States and whatever. But I did a podcast with him, and he was telling me about shooting these just really bad gore pictures in the 60s. And it sounds similar. It's like they just put everybody up against the wall, and there'd be one shot. And the actors actually got to the point that they knew if they plugged the line that they'd probably
get another take.
Well, that they get a closer shot because he'd have to. And the other thing he told me, which you'd probably appreciate, was when they were shooting on the beach, they'd lay out the cables, and wherever the cables stopped and the light went, that's where the light went. Because they didn't have enough cables. But it sounds like the same kind of thing.
Yeah, the dailies were in black and white because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
But the first day's dailies were in color. So you got to see the first day's dailies in the theater because Roger came to the first day's dailies.
Yeah.
And this is how confident he was. By that point, he directed 75 movies.
Oh, wow.
And Roger knew. I thought, if this is like B pictures, this is like the lowest of the totem pole. This is a great, because Roger knew exactly what the fuck he needed, what he wanted.
Yeah.
And he knew when he could tell you do whatever you want, right? So he just said basically. Now, when you're doing a setup, you ask your cameraman how long to make it beautiful, and how long to make it decent, and how long to get an image. He said, and go for the image. Right? So clearly the emphasis was
he was a businessman.
Get it done.
Yeah,
quick,
get it done quick.
But as long as I gave him the elements that he needed,
you could do anything else you want.
Right.
Yeah.
And so. So you basically, I was seeing the dailies, a lot of them just on a moviola.
Okay.
So, but I learned quickly that it was you can only do one or maybe two takes.
Yeah.
But the takes were measured by the sticks, so I figured out pretty quickly. Oh well, if we don't hit the sticks again. I just say, everyone get back to one. Let's do it again.
So you were doing what they do now, long before they were doing it.
Yeah. But Roger picked up on it pretty quickly.
All right. Well,
said no.
Yeah, no
but
extra
I was able to, as long as I made the day.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! But that's how you learn, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you push it and you push it and that's incredible. I worked down there briefly when it was in Venice. Did you ever work down?
No, I wasn't working with him. But that was Cameron. That was the cameraman. Cameron.
Yeah, well, he started there. Yeah, absolutely. And it was this weird sort of death trappy kind of, like if there was a fire, nobody would have made it out.
Yeah.
And I remember going down there with my Steadicam and working on Carnosaur 2 because there were questions at the end of Carnosaur 1 that needed to be answered. and the producer came in and said, and they were paying me nothing, but he said, all right, so you can do this shot, and then I need you to go down the corridor and make a right, and there's another movie you're going to do a shot for that. And that's sort of what you did. You were just like, what am I working on now? And it's like you're in some spaceship or something like that.
Right.
It was just assembly line filming. But there are so many people I know, I mean, you're way ahead of us, but who came out of there who were just great filmmakers.
Yeah, no, it was the Roger
Scorsese and Marty Brest and
Coppola.
Coppola, yeah. I mean, just like so many.
Bogdanovich.
Yeah. It's
incredible. It was basically the Roger Corman postgraduate school of filmmaking.
Right. Yeah, but that's hilarious that he sort of gave you those things. Do you remember who shot it? Who shot Night Call Nurses?
Oh, I blocked his name because I wanted Jamie to shoot it.
Yeah.
And but they had a guy who had shot for them before, and he wasn't great.
It wasn't okay. Well, but also that is sort of normal. Is like the untested person is coming in, and we're going to put them with the people that we know to keep track of them.
Right.
Yeah. So you learned a lot on that, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought, okay, that was fun.
Yeah.
Directing this movie, and the movie's terrible,
Yeah.
and so I went back to New York. Typical. I didn't give up my New York apartment. You know,
You didn't burn the boats.
I mean, I had a pretty good deal, $125 rent
Oh my
on
gosh.
13th Street between Second and Third. So I went back saying, okay, that was fun. Now I'll get back to trying to get in the editing
Yeah,
union.
yeah.
And I get a call from Julie towards the end of the summer.
This is Corman's wife.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Julie Corman, and she said we broke records in Tallahassee. And because it was a drive-in business then. I mean, I know this sounds to some people who are listening to this, it's like what?
What?
Yeah. But there was
That's where these B movies played.
that's
basically. Yeah.
Roger made his money. New World Pictures and American International Pictures, which is a bigger company, which Roger directed for a lot.
Yeah.
That's where they made their money. Was in drive-ins.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, but I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and major films were played in drive-ins.
Sure.
In the summer, that's
Well, and this was literally the B movie, which is like there was the big movie, and then this was the second movie that played, right?
And
Or maybe the first.
Or they'd have 3B movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was all, they were R-rated,
Yeah.
and so we broke records in Tallahassee. So she said, Roger wants you to come back and make the same movie for him but with teachers. So it just the student teachers. We made the student teachers.
Okay.
And not the student teachers. The student teachers. The copy line, as we called it, was student teachers enter their course. Rated R.
Classic. But I mean, the thing is, when you're making movies like that, I would imagine it's just like anything else. You're just glad to be working. You're just glad to be. Someone's paying you to learn your job, right?
Yeah.
But are you trying to make it anything more than what it is?
No,
or you
just trying. Big mistake.
You're just delivering the pizza.
I mean, but I mean, but Marty said, try to pick a couple of scenes, 3-4 scenes, and
experiment
and try to make those as the optimum version of those that you can, or set yourself challenges.
Yeah,
and that's basically what you do. What I did with everything that I was directing, I always tried to give myself something new to do, a challenge, something. Try to figure out, try to answer some question that you have about how would this work, or maybe I could try this.
Sure. Yeah.
And then that started with, I mean, Night Call Nurses, I was just trying to stay above water.
Of course. Yeah.
But I mean, I think there were a couple of scenes which I tried to achieve certain things, but then with student teachers, I wanted it to be. I wanted to make comedies, so I wanted student teachers to be funnier than Night Call Nurses was. So that was what that was
that was where you pushed it.
Yeah.
And so, did you become sort of a Corman staple after that?
Well, I did those 2 movies, and then Gene Corman, Roger's brother, who was not nearly as talented as Roger, but Gene had a deal with MGM, but it was sort of the under the table non-union arm of MGM,
Okay.
and I did the Slams for him, which was a black exploitation picture starring Jim Brown.
Oh wow! Okay.
And from that, I got Truck Turner, which was the first union movie I did, IA movie I did,
Okay.
with for American International Pictures, which Larry Gordon was running at the time, and it was I came in and interviewed for that, and it was Larry told me that it's going to be Robert Mitchum, Ernest Borgnine, or Lee Marvin as Truck Turner. Right.
We're all huge people.
Yeah, no, that was a reach for AIP to get one of those guys. And then, so I signed up, and then I got a call. It's Isaac Hayes, and he's going to meet you right now. You go to his address and so forth. I'm going, what? So I went and met Ike, and it was just, I fell in love. I mean, the guy was just, I mean, I walk in, and he was rehearsing the score for whatever the last thing. He won the Academy Award for Shaft. So he was in demand as a film composer.
Yeah.
And so he had this house at the top of Mulholland, and I go in there and I walk in, and he couldn't have been warmer or sweeter. But his whole band is sitting in the living room, and they're rehearsing for this next project, whatever it was. So I get to sit there and hear him work with his band.
You mean for the next soundtrack that he's doing, or
whatever he was doing?
They're figuring it out.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh, it was amazing.
Wow, that's Is it one of those things where you sit there and you're like, I can't
Well, it was just
believe this is
it
actually
was
happening.
awesome. I mean, just was completely. I don't use the word awesome a lot, but it was awesome.
Yeah,
And I mean, to hear, the the pedal, like, guitar,
Yeah.
that guitar, like,
Yeah.
to hear it all live, all the stuff that we'd gotten to know from the Shaft soundtrack.
Sure.
Holy shit!
Wow. And so what was the jump to Union like? Was that a huge just everything's completely different or
Well, it was. I preferred it because the hours were under control. It was like,
Yeah.
and I mean, I love Truck Turner. Truck Turner was the most amazing experience, and we just laughed our asses off. It was so much fun.
Oh, that's great.
And but it was a sort of culture clash because the crew were pretty much all white
So
Hollywood veterans.
that was the Union crew back then, right?
Right.
And and as I've talked to other people, people who haven't listened to this, you really only got in if you knew someone or you were related to someone. So that's why it was all white, because the people that people tended to know, and so there wasn't any diversity, and there was no women on the crew, right, except for maybe
No.
hair and makeup,
Right.
I would assume, but
Right.
yeah,
Right. But simultaneously with Truck Turner was 73, 74. That's when people like Andy Davis and Jamie Anderson, there's a whole bunch of young guys who were in the IA, but they wanted to become DPs. They'd gotten into the IA as, as second camera assistants, as loaders.
Yeah.
And they wanted to become operators or become, and get to
Move up the
operators
line, yeah.
so they could get to DP sooner.
Yeah.
And so they anyway, that's a whole separate thing. But that lawsuit was sort of in its it was happening then.
Wait, which lawsuit are you talking about?
These guys all basically
To open up the union, you mean?
threatened. Yeah, guys basically to take the union to court to say this nepotism and these.
It's got to stop.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the reason I'm in the union, because Lord knows I wouldn't have been.
Right.
And that changed everything. So
And Haskell Wexler, by the way, just was instrumental in helping these guys.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. He was a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Did you ever work with him?
No, I wish I had.
Did you know him?
Yeah,
or-
I know.
Yeah.
We were both on the board of the Directors Guild actually together.
Okay.
And we were sort of him and me and John Frankenheimer were sort of, and Norman Jewison, we were the left wing.
I was going to say that. Oh, Jonathan's talking again.
No, I deferred to, believe me, those guys.
Haskell's talking again.
We were formidable.
That's great. I have this image of like the big table, and you guys are sitting at one end, and there's a couple empty seats, and then everybody else. That's fantastic. So, I mean, after Truck Turner, were you sort of an established name in Hollywood
Okay,
then?
so
or-
here's what happened. Truck Turner, was a black exploitation picture, right? And it opened. In those days, I don't know how they worked out the release pattern, but basically, its first weekend, it was in sort of Chicago, Detroit,
Okay.
and I in between the time of me finishing Truck Turner and when it's released, I was working with a fellow NYU graduate, Ken Friedman, on a treatment for a movie about truck drivers, a Western-based, modern-day Western about truck drivers called White Line Fever. And we had, through our agent, we had gotten it to on Peter Guber's desk at Columbia Pictures, and so that treatment got to him the week after Truck Turner opened, and Truck Turner opened huge. In Detroit and Chicago.
So suddenly there's heat.
The Variety headline is Truck Turner breaks records, whatever. So Goober is sitting there, and he's got a treatment for a truck driving movie. and he sees Truck Turner. Get me Kaplan's next truck movie. Of course, Truck Turner. There's no truck in Truck Turner. That's Isaac Hayes' character's
not important.
name. No, clearly it wasn't. So I got my first major studio movie, White Line Fever, for Columbia for Goober. So
Wow. But so that's what I'm saying. So at this point, you're sort of somewhat of an established name.
well, I'm up and coming.
Yeah, up and coming.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just so I mean, this has nothing to do with what, but are things just like, are scriptures coming to you at
No.
that point? Like, no,
No.
you're still struggling.
No, I mean, White Line Fever was Kenny and I generated that.
And that was your next movie?
Yeah, so that was for Columbia, and that was my first sort of mainstream movie.
Yeah. So tell me about. I don't know how far ahead this is, but you mentioned when I left out at the beginning, Over the Edge, which was a movie that you did where you basically discovered Matt Dillon,
Right.
And do you remember? I'm always interested in that, about someone who discovers someone who's talented like that. Do you remember? What did you see? Did he come in and read, and you just went, "Who is this kid?" kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we weren't casting any names, because Over the Edge was for Orion, which was a company that had just formed from the former United Artists executives who'd been so successful, and they got into a fight with corporate, and so they created their own company.
Yeah.
And Mike Medavoy is a famous Hollywood agent and executive. He was sort of running, quote, creative Orion, right? So he made a deal with this producer George Leto to do this movie for $1.5 million.
Yeah.
And it was basically didn't need to have any names in it. So we were looking for just kids, and they were 14, 15-year-old kids. And so Matt, Vic Ramos was the casting director in New York, and we first saw all the professional kids, and they were all like these cutesy commercial kids. Like, no, because it is, so we needed real kids, and so met two women that I went to. One woman who worked at the Fillmore with me, and another woman who I went to NYU Film School. I hired them as casting assistants, basically, and a bunch of other people, my sister, and they went out to find real kids,
Not actors, just
the actors was not working.
Yeah.
And so
like To Kill a Mockingbird, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So they ended up in New Rochelle, which is a suburb of New York, and Matt was being, had been found smoking in the boys' room, literally, and they said him, right? So, but they also had a couple of other kids from the school, from junior high school. So they came in, but Matt was like, he had this attitude,
just because he was real.
Yeah, and because he had had attitude.
Yeah.
And plus he was cute.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, Matt came in. He thought the whole thing. He thought maybe that we were like, trying to pick him up. Like, Vic had this townhouse on East 9th Street or West 9th Street, and Matt was suspicious that maybe this was some gay pickup going on,
like a hustle going on. It's hysterical.
And so I remember like asking, because it's just like Vic and I said, Vic had this setup, which I at first thought was, what is this? But he had this full-length mirror behind a wall of full-length mirrors behind us. So Vic and I sat there. So the actors would have to see themselves.
Oh, they see themselves. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And he said, "Trust me, it's a good tool." And and then you started to watch how actors reacted to seeing themselves,
because they're seeing themselves.
Yeah. And it was just an instant Rorschach test, right? And Matt, of course, wasn't thrown by it at all. He wouldn't sit down. No, that's it. But he started like looking at himself in the mirror and combing his hair.
So you knew right off the bat that there was something there.
Right?
That's great.
and the way he talked, it was like, he's a working class kid, but he's from New Rochelle. Well, what was cool was the Fonz. What was cool was Rocky.
This was that time period.
So he was like, who's the
I see. Okay.
He was affecting.
Yeah.
And so it would be like, kids, today affecting like, rapper.
Yeah.
So I remember saying, so Matt, so what do you what do your parents do? If I was a fucking stockbroker. Well, what does your mother do? She don't do shit. Okay. Now, so we had to beg him to come back, but it was so clear,
Wow.
this was the right kid.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I mean that movie when it finally came out, because it didn't come out for a while, right?
Well, it came out, and then it's a long story,
Yeah.
but basically, Joseph Papp, who ran the Public Theater, had this film series called Off the Shelf, and so whoever I forget who curated that movie. I shouldn't forget, because they've saved my career.
Uh-huh.
But basically, it got reviewed. They picked it for the Off the Shelf Festival, and it got reviewed by Vincent Canby in the New York Times as one of the best films of the year
That nobody's heard of. Because,
yeah. And so then it took off in terms of its reputation.
That's wild. Wow, what a crazy business. At some point, so now wait, did you veer into music videos before you did The Accused or
No, let's see. The Accused, no. I did the first music video I did was for Rod Stewart, and that was I had my agent at the time, Arnold Stiefel, became Rod's manager.
Okay.
So that's how I got my
Gotcha.
first.
And this was when music videos were like big. I mean, this was a big deal.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And then I got represented by the way you did music videos was you were represented by a production house. So this guy Bob Abel he was a commercial guy, but he also started this music video wing.
Yeah.
So I was, and the music video producer represented you. So that's how so that led to Streisand, and then that led to Mellencamp.
I was working with Streisand.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was, well, look, I had a unique situation with her, because I was hired by her directly. She's, but her boyfriend at the time was Richard Baskin of the Baskin Robbins ice cream fame.
Okay.
But he was Robert Altman's music guy. He's a good musician.
Everybody's connected to everybody.
Well, yeah, yeah.
When I talk to people about old Hollywood, what I come away with is like there were 25 people, and that was it.
6 degrees of separation.
It's like one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I could, I don't know how long you want me to go into.
No, I know. Well, it's fascinating to me, but what
I was just saying, the unique situation was I wasn't in a position to fight her on anything, because it was her. She was the product.
Yeah.
She was the producer.
Yeah.
She wrote this. I mean, she didn't write the song, but it was her song.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So you told the camera where to be.
No. We actually had you can cut this out, but anyway, Barbara is, she's incredibly knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And she's really funny. And if you just are yourself with her, if you don't try to, she can
smell it.
The greatest bullshit barometer.
I was
going to
say, she can smell it.
Yeah. And
I actually appreciate people like that, because they want real people around them, and that's what they crave, because they don't have real people around them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And she was like, she'd been gaslighted so many times.
Yeah.
That she was trying to,
So she clearly appreciated you, because you're not that person on so many levels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Barbara loves visuals. She loves art direction. She loves photography, and she's got a really good eye.
Yeah.
And so, we storyboarded the whole video, and we were very clear about absolutely everything. And the cameraman, who will remain nameless, he sort of, it was this, sort of,
Well,
I'll just
that's
say
great,
yes
but
to
we'll
this.
do this.
Yeah, I know what we're going to do on the day, right? On the day arrives, and she wanted to get the performance out of the way, which was, I wanted to too, because she hadn't performed in public for 5 years.
The song.
You're doing the performance part of the song,
yeah.
right? And so she said, I'd like to do that first. I said, yeah, let's do it first. And so we're setting up for that, and she comes out, gets on the stage, and sitting on this stool, and I see her like she's going like this and looking around, and she's touching the back of her neck, and she's got this comb, and we, she'd been 3 hours in fucking hair and makeup. It's like, don't touch the hair.
Don't touch anything.
But she's putting this comb, and so I snuck up behind her, went up on the stage, and came through the wings and came up behind her. I said, and when she went, I said, what are you doing? And she, I said, what is that? Right? It was a light meter. Harry Stradling Jr. gave it to her.
Wait. She was holding up.
She had it looked like a comb.
It looked like a comb,
but it was a
and
light.
she was pretending. She was almost pretending that
measuring the light.
she was measuring the light.
She said, "He doesn't have enough stop to zoom."
Oh my gosh,
He,
that's unbelievable.
I know.
That's
he can't zoom. He doesn't have enough stop to zoom. I said, "Well, the first shot's a zoom, and it was designed."
Yeah.
So I said,
So wait, but just to back up, because for anybody who's listening that doesn't quite get this, because this is all coming together for me now, what she is aware of is A, how to use a light meter, B, how much light there is, and she also understands what kind of light you need for a zoom lens, which is more than prime lenses.
at that time, you needed a 5.6.
But what I'm saying is, like, that's an incredible, I mean,
level of sophistication.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm telling you. She knows. See, all the sexist shit that she's had to endure all these years, plus being like a pushy Jewish broad.
Yeah.
And she knows, man.
That's incredible.
But so I said, how did you just she said, no, I could feel it on my neck. I knew it wasn't hot enough. The backlight wasn't hot enough.
Oh, that's why she was touching her neck, because she's saying there's not enough heat there.
Yeah, I don't feel.
Wow.
Imagine having that kind of skill to feel the heat from the backlight and know we don't have enough stop to zoom.
And also, by the way,
then check it with your comb light meter.
Yeah, but that's also not. It's funny because it sort of makes me think of like Get Smart with like the phone in his shoe or something like that. But it's not only that. That's not just someone who's done this a ton. That's someone who's like on a level of intelligence that's like that's incredible.
But after she felt like she got screwed in Hollywood by in her first experiences in Hollywood.
We know what you'll be fine and whatever. Because keep in mind, everybody who's listening, you're not seeing maybe you're seeing video playback, but it doesn't look like what it looks like because it's film. So
right, you're trusting. And you come out thinking, I don't know anything about movies, and I'll trust these people.
Yeah, they told me it was okay, and then you see it and you go, this is horrible.
But Harry Stradling they became pals.
Wow.
And he taught her. She said, teach me everything about photography. That's how she is. She's like, she just sit there and teach me.
That's the more you know. I mean, you become invincible at that point because nobody can BS.
But you're humble enough to know I don't know this, so let me learn it.
Let me learn it from the best.
And I have to know this now because people who are telling me this
I can't
are
trust
lying
them.
to me.
Yeah. Wow. So what did you do?
So I go down to the DP. And I said, listen, she wants to do this as a Zoom, and she knows there's not enough light there. And he's like, oh. I said, she knows that. And we're not going to get a first shot until you get the light level up so we can zoom. He said, but I can't deal with the shadow. If I get it up there, I get the shadows. I said, well, it's not like we didn't say this was a Zoom shot 5 weeks ago. Yeah.
Wow. That's an incredible story.
And then I'll just
this is fantastic.
So then she's doing lip sync, right? Back to the song.
Playback.
And she says to me, he says, just watch me and tell me
if it looks right.
Yeah. And she said, but don't cut me off because I might catch up or let me get all the way through and then fine. Yeah. So she hadn't done it in a while, and she was having, she was rubbery, right? And so, we did it like 3 or 4 times, and she said, okay, I know, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I cleared the room out, just no distractions, whatever. It was still rubbery. So she said, you know what, turn the monitor around, let me watch. If I can watch it, put it in my eye line, let me watch it, and then maybe I can pull myself into sync.
Yeah.
Boom.
Really?
Boom. Perfect.
That's amazing. That's a pro, right?
Total pro.
That's incredible.
Total pro.
That's incredible. These stories are they blow me away. At some point, I should ask you something about operating.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Actually, here's the thing. With all of these, what I've found is I let them sort of take, because this is fascinating stuff. And actually, I love hearing this, and I think that a lot of people who are getting into the business love hearing, how it was back then. But you and I met on ER,
right?
And one of the things that actually impressed me about you was I couldn't bullshit you because, of course, I tried to bullshit you.
Well,
No, it doesn't do that. I think it does do that. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, but you were incredibly
that is a
helpful
test.
to me.
Well, but I remember that we came in on the weekend and we went through because ER, was more Steadicam. Had you ever worked with Steadicam on that level before that?
No,
I don't think
never.
anybody had.
No,
It
no.
was-
I mean,
and-
I was so curious about
yeah,
it.
and most people were. So I think we came in on the weekend and we talked about shots. And I
Well, but
remember,
I basically approached the whole thing of, because I remember when I got into ER because of Tony Ed.
this is like season 4, I think, probably, right? Or-
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and Tony and I had just done the miniseries for In Cold Blood together.
Yeah, okay,
and,
that's what it was.
And Tony
Yeah.
was, I first
You've
became,
known each other forever,
yeah,
right?
I cast him in Heart Like a
Heart
Wheel,
like a wheel, sure.
and he was a teenager then.
Yeah.
So Tony said you should come to ER. It's fun. You'll like it,
Yeah.
And so I met with Chris Shulak, and
The
I could
executive producer.
right.
correct.
Sorry,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
And I could tell. I mean, I am completely aware of what I don't know, right? And I thought, okay, I don't know. They do this show in 8 days. How do they fucking do it?
Had you
right?
not done TV, like normal TV? Not
I had done a couple TV movies,
yeah,
but I'd never done
a
series.
a series.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I met with Chris, and I could tell initially that Chris was like, the subtext of the conversation was, this is this big feature guy, and he thinks this and that. So, and I guess they'd already worked with Tarantino or whatever.
Well,
but,
Tarantino did an episode in season 1 that I think was a little odd for everybody.
yeah, it's really.
And so I think there was a little concern about bringing in feature people.
That's exactly what. That's what I say. Yeah. So I sort of stopped him at some point. I said, Chris, listen, I'm here to learn. Honest to God, I have no agenda. I want to watch you guys. So I followed him, and I watched the episode that was directly before me, was directed by someone who I won't mention, but it was his first time, and it
didn't go well.
which was actually a good education for me, because I got to watch and see how this is how you don't do it.
But it's funny you say that, because this is one thing that I tell younger operators is you learn so much more from watching people screw up, because it's very rare that you see someone hit something out of the park, just in general.
Right.
And you learn a lot from that, obviously, but you learn so much more from going, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to say that.
And I got to learn the actors. I guess I
sure.
This is real. Doesn't he realize this is really pissing her off?
So you had that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I do remember you hanging around beforehand.
Yeah,
So you were there more than most people.
Yeah, and then you graciously came in and helped me, because I remember that I had this. It was the episode was Noah and what's her name? Glenn.
Glenn Headley.
Glenn Headley.
Yeah.
It's the episode where Eric LaSalle realizes that
they're having an affair.
They're having an affair.
This wasn't the episode where he throws her down on the desk and they clear the desk, was that?
No,
okay.
This was
That's another episode.
but so anyway, but I was really lucky to get that episode, because it was funny, and it was all about, like, and Eric's reaction was fantastic,
Yeah.
So, but you were very helpful, saying, if with a Steadicam we could do this, we could pan from here to there, and it was the sort of the pan back to Eric's reaction that was
when he realizes what's
coming
going
from
on
his point of view,
That's what you're saying.
panning to him.
Yeah.
You think, well, that's not a Steadicam shot, but it was really because of the Steadicam that that we were able to, go from a nice, his point of view, high angle 2 shot of them.
Yeah.
And by the time we got to him, it was a nice choker on him.
It's the rim shot on the joke.
Exactly.
So that was overwhelming for you to coming in and working with camera like that? Like,
it wasn't. It was,
because I don't remember it as being.
No. But it was. I just didn't know how to get the optimum use of the Steadicam. I mean, what I did notice, which was what I was most concerned about, were the trauma scenes.
Sure.
Because I just thought, I don't know, how am I going to do these?
Which, ironically, at the end of the day, are almost the easier things to do, because you just let the doctors do this, and
right.
Yeah.
It was because Joe Sachs was the tech, and it was because Joe Sachs and you both said to me, "Don't worry."
I don't remember this, but this doesn't surprise me.
No, you were really helpful, and you just said, and I said, "But I'm sitting. Yeah, you stay here."
We'll go do
we're going to go in and work this out,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And then I thought, this is incredible.
That's hysterical.
And because then it's almost like you feel like that, someone would say, is there anything else that you need, because you would work it out like, I'll be here for here and I'll
Yeah,
come around here
yeah.
for that. And I got to land here for this. And then they're sort of like, so you basically, I've called in and you guys show me the scene.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
go, oh, wow.
yeah. I'll go back out there.
Action.
But the thing is, I think that I don't
No,
even.
but you asked me, what would you? So I said, so could we maybe get a low angle like this coverage on George when he's doing the yes? Oh yeah, it was like yes, and I thought, oh, that was a good idea.
But the funny thing is I think that we probably did that because the trauma scenes were overwhelming to the people who were coming in because we would do these roundies and whatever.
Yeah.
But they were so second nature to us, and the actors were so good with the medical, and the medical people were so good with giving, telling what to do, that I think we probably. And I don't use this in a bad way. I think we kind of steamrolled some of the early directors to just go, let us put this together for you, and then you finesse it. Do you know?
Yeah. Why would you not let them
well, but not everybody's like
not
that.
everyone's smart.
But so
no, but it was also the block. You took the blocking off my shoulders because I realized when Joe said no, this doctor has to stand here.
Well, the thing is, there's stuff that has to happen, right?
And he told me that, which I never knew. He said, the reason that this doctor stands here and this doctor stands here and this nurse stands here is that any medical professional there opens the door and knows who everyone is by where they are.
By where they are. Oh, I didn't know that.
It was like military.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but because I thought, how am I going to tell Noah where to go and tell,
and then you realize I don't.
I don't. Joe does.
Someone else does.
But Noah was already a doctor. He knew anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. But so tell me about working with operators, not on that show, but just in general.
Okay.
What's the difference between a good operator and a great operator to you?
Well, that definition changed with the technology.
Okay.
But before video,
yeah,
I sat next to the camera.
Yeah.
I
miss those days.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
I mean I didn't have video. I don't remember what the first picture I had video on was, but you it's you and the operator.
Yeah.
And I'd have to be out of the actor's eye line.
Yeah.
And so I'd sometimes be crouched down behind the operator, whatever. But that's how you see what's going on. But it was this whole, basically because you didn't know until you saw dailies.
Well, there was a trust that doesn't exist anymore.
That's right.
And not for bad, but it doesn't need to exist because it's funny. I often say that now the people in Video Village see a better image than I see.
Yeah, but
because
I think something's been lost because you're wrong. There should be that trust. I craved that. When I was working, I craved that relationship with the operator because there's suggestions that come from the operator, like about acting, where the operator would say, "Listen, one operator once said about an actor I was working with, he really relaxes after you've printed a take."
Interesting. And you didn't recognize that yourself.
I hadn't figured that out.
Well, it's also probably because he's 4 feet from the guy.
Well,
there are things that he sees, and you're back in Video
Village. But also, he's seen a lot more actors through the spout than I have.
Yeah.
Right? It's like when I worked with Jodie Foster, I realized, oh, she's had more experience than I've had. I should listen to her.
But as far as so, how do operators give you that information?
All right, so what the skill that operators used to have when there was no monitor was precise communication of what they had just photographed.
Yes.
And whatever the changes were in that.
This is what I saw, and you don't know that I saw this.
And his nose came in, so I had to adjust for that. And you might not be able to use it from this line to this line. The script supervisor being the third point in that triangle.
Yep.
And the three of us would huddle, just to find out where are we and what do we need. And the operator had a lot of power because I'd say, "I've got it. Did we get it?" Yeah. And the other technique that I actually learned it from Marty Ritt, because Marty Ritt was a former actor, and as a director, he never wanted to embarrass an actor. So like I said, we have to go again because you
Because
flubbed
you
your line.
screwed your
Even though
line,
everyone
yeah.
heard the line being flubbed.
Yeah.
But he
didn't want to call
something else,
attention to
right.
it. Yeah.
And and Marty would go like Jimmy to Jimmy. Jimmy went home. Jimmy said, "Yeah, flare in the light." Yeah. And Marty. So the operator knew that part of his job was to take the heat,
To take the hit.
so they get another take.
Yep.
Right. And I observed that. Marty didn't tell me that, but I just observed it. So that was what I I would collaborate with the operator and the script supervisor about the acting, about saying, look, and you'd figure out like who's how many times should we rehearse this so that we can really nail it on the first take, because this actor performance starts to fall apart,
We
or
don't want
it's
to
not
lose
as
it in
good.
rehearsal.
They're really and
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman's whole thing was always the first take is the best take.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure there's no technical flubs.
Sure.
And that's his, for him. It's right. So anyway, that was the an underappreciated skill of an operator is knowing about performance.
Yeah.
Understanding like the psychology of the actor, which is that's directing.
There's no question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if I mean what I learned was to be as collaborative as possible with the operator, because that's what, because then it's you don't want to be surprised when you go to dailies and go, what the fuck,
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is you say that that's a lost art, and I don't disagree with it. But
I don't know if it's lost, but it's not required.
It's not required, yeah. But I think actually the thing that has flipped it in the other direction is I will do things and I'll like sort of think, well, we're going again, and then I won't hear we're going again, and then I'll sort of go, well, I mean, they saw that. I guess I should go just make sure they saw. But you start to go, well, they saw that, so they must be okay with it, and it allows you to be lazy, right? Because they are watching. Well, of course, they might not. They might be on their phones or whatever. But, so I'll go in and go, you did see the bird fly through the scene there. What?
Right.
Bird flew? Yeah,
Right.
There's a bird through the scene. Why aren't we going again?
Right.
But then the other thing I'll tell you is I've had situations where I have taken the hit, like an actor will, flub a line or something like that, and I need another one. And the director come out and be like, "Why do you need another one?" And I'm like, "I just need another one. I kind of screwed up the really because I was watching. I didn't see anything." And
Shut up, man.
"You're like, shut up." Well, I didn't see the problem. What's the problem? And it's just like, well, I kicked the camera. I didn't. Did you see it kick the camera? Like, really, you get your eyes big and you're like,
I know, no.
and they just don't get it. But there is that thing. So let me ask you a different question. You don't have to name any names here. Operators who you've worked with who you didn't think were doing a good job because they were doing something. What are things that an operator, a younger operator, what are things that they shouldn't do?
Operators who want to be DPs, and they should all want to be DPs if that's what they want, but who are more interested in the lighting and then the shooting,
And the storytelling.
than the story, right?
Yeah.
And so and who are just sort of like walled off in the sort of this. Whether it's their relationship with the DP or whatever it is, where it's just sort of like we are the camera department and you are the other.
Gotcha.
And that I address that quickly.
Yeah.
But that there is that, and but also the just sort of like it's good enough. The not being able to say.
Yeah.
Obviously. You're looking at a monitor and you should be able to see, but sometimes, especially now in the era of multiple cameras, you'd have to have 6 eyeballs. You have to be a spider to watch everything.
So you need everybody to be making sure that it's the best.
So the communication skills are required.
Yes.
And it's no reflection on you. Your ego is not at play here. Just say we need to go again.
Yeah.
Instead of that's good enough. It's late. Let's go home.
Yeah. Which unfortunately happens.
Well, and I get it because we get tired too.
Yeah.
And sometimes the vibe from the actor is like, let's get out of here.
We've done this.
Especially on a series TV, which is
Yeah.
And I mean one of the great things that Richard Thorpe said to me on ER, because
Richard Thorpe was a cinematographer. A very funny guy.
Very, very funny guy, and not a phony.
Yeah.
And Richard basically said, for you, it's Lawrence of Arabia. For them, it's one episode. It's 1 hour of a 24-hour movie.
That sounds exactly like it.
Yeah. And I was supposed to yell, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, don't say, oh, I just need another 10 minutes. So I can, you know, you're not making
Yeah.
your feature. You just,
Yeah.
it's an episode.
Yeah.
And I remember when I laid out this shot for you and Richard, it was George, the first time I was working with Clooney. And I laid this shot out, and I saw you and Richard like look at each other. And I thought, what? You know, because I wasn't asking for it.
Yeah.
George, you come down, you and Juliana, you come down the hall here, and then you go through the door here, and you end up at the nurse's station, and then that's where we do over, close up.
Yeah.
And, you know, but it was a chunk of the scene was walk and talk.
It was walking
right?
talk. Okay.
And so I, at that point, I figured I left the set and come back, and I come back, and George is like, he's not coming around the corner. He's starting at the end of the hall, and Brick is pushing this rack.
One of the
extras,
the professional extras who's
right,
with us all the time.
The atmosphere artist.
Yeah, he was actually fantastic.
He was fantastic. And I mean, you know, now I know why. But Brick is pushing this thing, but the rack is sort of like almost blocking George. Juliana.
Okay.
Like, oh, you know, wait a minute. And then Richard says, go walk George's walk here for a second. So, and here are these cue cards on the back of the rack.
I don't remember this at all, but now I know.
And it's passing George. Yeah. And then this nurse comes up to him and hands him phone messages.
Yep.
And the rest of his lines are on the phone messages.
George was classic that way. Look, he was probably Batman, whatever George's name in ER, and something else at the same time.
Oh, he hadn't done Batman yet. But the next
or
year.
One Fine Day or something like that.
Yeah, right. So, but the thing was, Wells, in his perverse sense of humor, said to me,
John Wells, the executive producer,
said, and this was before my first episode. He said, you know, and we had this the tone meeting where he was sort of running down the cast with me and what his perceptions of what their do's and don'ts were with the cast.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, with George, if you could just get him to stop looking down so much.
Which, if you look back on ER, that's George's go-to.
Right? No, the drinking game with ER is, you know, take a shot every time George looks down. You'll be drunk by 15 minutes.
First commercial, yeah.
So now I'm in the trauma scene, and George is, you know, like, so where are we going to be on this first setup? We're going to be above the
table.
Patient. Yeah. And you and Richard are yes.
Because we know what's coming.
Yeah. So I come in, you know, for the first one, Steadicam going around and everything, and I realize I can't be in the room because I'll be on the shot. So, but as I'm leaving, I notice the patient's got like cue cards lying on top of it.
Yeah.
And so then I see, George is doing the whole scene, looking down. He's supposed to be working on the patient, but suddenly he's looking at the patient's face, then he's looking at the patient's feet, you know. And so then I go for cut. I said, geez, Wells told me they're not going to look that. So when I get on the coverage of him, so I kept lowering the camera to try to catch his eyes. And finally, George says, he told you not to have me look down so much, right? I said, yeah. He said,
not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
No,
Get it?
No. I could. Look, I'll put this out there to people who don't know. That's why on every episode of ER, there's one pen in George's pocket, which is a microphone that goes into a thing. Because the boom guys, you probably remember this, the boom guys couldn't get great sound on him from above because he's always looking down. So they just go, well, we'll just put it in your pocket. He had a very specific one. That was George, 100%.
And to be fair,
he pulls it off.
And the medical stuff, the medical dialogue, is impossible.
It's impossible. There's no question.
And especially if you've got to get it right. I mean, I remember we did this one long, terrific Steadicam shot, which ended up on a close-up of Alex Kingston, and she had to say, you know, give him the last line was, you know, 9 of something, right? And the shot we finally got to take was perfect.
Yeah.
And Fred Idesman, Dr. Fred, was the doctor. And we got it. We're all, And Fred says,
she said it wrong.
Said she just killed an elephant.
Because
it's a .09.
It's .09.
Not 9 point.
She just killed an
She
elephant.
just killed an elephant.
That's great. Yeah. It's funny. There are things that I remember from that show. Like, I remember season 4. I left a couple days early because my dad had been in the hospital. My dad's a doctor, so I show up and he had some heart problems, which thankfully everything's fine. But I show up and I'm like, "How you doing?" And he goes, "This is my son. He's on ER and whatever." And he goes, "Dave, tell him something you learned on ER." And I'm like, "Well, have you given him a laparoscopic Meckel's diverticulectomy?" And they both look at me and they're like, "Why would we do that?" I'm like, "I don't even know what it means."
No, but it sounds good, doesn't
But
it?
it's stupid crap I learned on ER. And my dad thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
It's funny.
They're like, "There's a problem with his heart." I'm like, "I don't even know if that has anything to do with his heart." But yeah, there was weird stuff you learned on the show. But one of the things that I will say that working with you on ER, which I had been there for years, so it's like my first year I went, "Oh God, how do I do this show? How do I make these things work?" And then the second year you came in, and it was great because you basically went, "No, you're not just shooting this, you're telling the story." And that sort of was the first time I was like, "Oh, I'm like a big part of this." And then when
And you're the audience. It's
when
like,
it-
where do you want to
it's
be
very
as
much
an audience?
well, and it's people talk about it, and I don't take credit for it. I mean, Guy B really was the person who started it and the show itself, but that there was an extra character in that room, and that was that camera, and it was a cool thing to be a part
Right.
of for that reason.
Right.
But and then when I directed on season 5, you were with me in that, and I remember very specifically 2 things I remember specific. Well, there were many things, some of which I can't say, but there are certain things where we'd be in a meeting and we'd come out and you just shake your head and go, "Don't worry about it." But I remember casting. You were with me because I was like, I don't know what to do in casting because I never. And Brock Peters came in, who was in To Kill a Mockingbird, and unfortunately he was wrong for that role. But I was just like, this is Brock Peters, and
Right.
you were saying this is Brock Peters, and everybody else was like, who's Brock Peters? And I was like, oh, this is before IMDb and everything. And then the other thing was Dick Miller came in,
Right.
and I didn't really know who Dick Miller
Right.
was. I mean, Dick Miller is like a massive character actor through everything.
Right. And basically Roger Corman's good luck charm.
Yeah, and been around forever. And you basically leaned over and was like, "You gotta hire him," and I did, and he was fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But I remember having you at my side was a huge thing. Talk to me about operators working with actors and do like what they can do.
Well, I listen. I just believe that the more you can facilitate that relationship, the better. You
Yeah.
know. So I mean, you start working with an operator and you realize they've been cowed or they've never been allowed.
And there's a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
When you go to other shows, do you run into that a lot? Where because ER, it was like we were given free reign to do everything. I mean,
Right.
I would come up to you and other directors and go, he's not selling this line. Do you want me to talk to him or whatever? And you weren't like this, but there were some directors who would come in who would be completely overwhelmed by the actors who would come up and go, "Can you go ask George or can you go ask
Yeah.
Tony?"
Totally intimidated. Yeah.
And so we got used to that. But when you went to other shows, you run into operators who don't feel that that's okay.
Well, if they haven't been allowed to, or
Yeah.
they don't feel that that's a skill set that they need. But
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, I would just say, you don't have to come tell me to tell the actor to move 3 steps forward and they'll hit their light.
Yeah.
You know? And obviously the DP could do that, but whatever. But the point is, since I worked with operators who other actors had worked with on features that I did, who had worked with before me. They had a relationship from previous work together.
Sure.
So they would naturally. And at first I was like, wait a minute, I'm the director. What's going on here?
Yeah.
But they would say like, hey, so Tom, did you get that? Where was I? Did I need to be? But then I realized, well, this is completely helpful.
Yeah.
They trust this guy.
But I think that's because you don't have an ego about it, right?
Yeah. If you're threatened, look, it's not a good character trait to have as a director, to be threatened by other people's ideas.
But it does happen.
Oh,
This may shock you, Jonathan, but it's out there.
Listen, to me, when I got into the TV world and being a producing director, and I'd have to hire other directors, or I'd want to hire other directors. Usually, the network and the studio were telling me who the directors.
Yeah.
were. But dealing with it's like, really, I have to deal with this ego now.
Yeah.
I got to you're not even on camera, and I got to fucking go through this bullshit.
Yeah.
No, a lot of people are very threatened, but it's all about the performance. I'm in charge. Look, I'm the director. It's like, We all know you're the director. It says so on the
It
back of
says
your
on your
chair.
chair.
Sit the fuck down and listen to this person. They've been doing the show for 3 years.
That's-
You're just here for the first time.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to ask you a different question. When you go into a show or a movie with an actor or an actress who's a big name, there's obviously a situation where you at the beginning you poke a little and you read them and feel how much they need and how
You
much
talk to other
interaction.
people who've worked with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about operators? I mean, is there a way when you walk into a situation to figure that out?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm usually, if I see, it's easier now because of the IMDb and stuff.
Sure.
But if I know that they've worked on a picture and I know someone who's worked on that picture, I
Yeah.
can say, what's the deal?
Call someone up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
What do I need to know? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've done that with actors before, name actors, where I've
Yeah.
called people up and go, "What do I have to know?" Oh, well, just so you know, never have the camera below the eyeliner. Never,
Right.
don't say anything for the first take, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just to do your homework for that. Have you ever been in a situation where you and the DP did not get along well together, and the actor was and the operator was in the middle of it, or as an executive producer where the director and the DP weren't?
Yeah. I mean, I had a situation with a DP who became a director, and a good director.
Yeah.
And that's clearly was what he was interested in. He was not really interested in being the DP.
That was a way to get there.
Yeah, and he was already like, oh, I gotta, and so I'd be like communicating what I was trying to get.
Sorry, you were directing though.
I was
He
directing.
was the DP, but he wanted to be a director. I gotcha.
And ultimately, the operator just sort of took over. Just basically said, "I know what you want. I know."
To you.
Yeah, I know what you want. And so that was basically by the end of the show, I was talking to the operator.
Wow.
And the DP, he was fine with that because
he was fine with
he
it.
was on
Okay.
the phone with his agent trying
Yeah.
to line up a directing
That's
gig.
so that's a specific situation because the DP doesn't even want to be there. But
Well, he wanted to be there just to
not
pick up the check.
yeah. Sure. Yeah. That's because that's one of the things that I've talked to people about is unfortunately you do get into those situations where one of them is saying X and one of them is saying
Yeah, that's
Y.
murder.
That's murder. It is. And to me, you're going to lose no matter what. So you might as well face it straight on and pull them both together and just have a talk and say, "What guys?"
Yeah, listen, you're telling me this and you're telling me this. So what do I do?
I want both of you to be happy, but I can't.
I can't. Yeah, you're exactly.
Yeah. What about working with A and B camera? What do you?
Well, I mean, I got it. It was never a problem on ER.
Well, we didn't have it.
No. I mean, but sometimes there'd be multiple cameras for stunts or stuff.
but not anything.
Yeah, and always the multiple camera decision was part of pre-production, where you'd say, "I need a multiple camera on these days because of this."
Yeah, it was very specific.
And Thorpe was, obviously totally on top of that.
But what about shows that are two cameras?
Well, so I started with on Without a Trace. It became clear that there was just constantly a B camera, though they tried to schnorkel it around the union, not hire a second operator. They did that for a while until they got busted.
All right.
But that was sort of the Bruckheimer show way of but I hated it because basically the B camera was always crossing the line. It was like, because the DP says, it's like, we're not lit for the camera to be over here. It's basically I let the DP set the B camera.
I gotcha.
But then I realized editorially this is totally a profile with the actor looking to the wrong side of camera for the scene is useless. Why are we doing this?
So this was before people really knew how to use B camera. Then basically, it sounds like, or
I mean, look, stacking B cameras, that's fine. If you can get a wide shot and a close up at the same time.
Yeah.
But usually that was a problem for sound.
Yeah.
But when that wasn't a problem,
Yep.
then that's fine. I'm all for that. But now once we went digital, that didn't really matter because you can blow up shots. So if you've got a a 2T shot, that could be a choker without having to shoot.
Absolutely.
But now, I mean, not now, but when towards the end of my directing career, it was just out of control. GoPros hanging all over the place, and what are these shots?
Yeah.
And the idea was, we're gonna this is somehow efficient.
Yeah.
And actually, it meant you had to expand the editorial crew.
It got crazy for a while there, actually.
Yeah.
I do know that. And there was one show that I was on where they would bring in this 360-degree camera and put it on the set, like, next to the camera or something like that, for some sort of internet thing or whatever. And I remember thinking, like, I'm right next to this thing. I got to look horrible, and I don't know what this is going for.
What
And what
is
is
this?
it doing
Yeah.
anyway?
Yeah.
But it was this idea that they had that people were going to go on and want to
Interactive.
see and behind the scenes.
The making of. Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think that film has changed from when we shot film to digital? You think the process has changed?
Yeah. I mean, the worst part of it is you don't pick takes anymore. You don't say print.
Yeah.
I mean, the magic words were print. That means we got a good take.
Yeah.
And because because print meant those are the takes that
We're
were
gonna use it.
printed.
Yeah.
And the rest are, B negative or
Yeah.
negative sitting there
Yeah.
in case you need it.
And do you think it's changed the process? The fact that you could just roll and roll and roll and roll.
Yeah.
And roll?
I mean, first of all, it's made it less. It's made it less about like the discipline of getting this setup right. It's just like, we keep shooting, we keep rolling. Director walks into frame, talks to the actors.
Yeah.
I mean, I've literally had someone tell me that they were advised as a young director, they were advised to walk in and make a big show of their directing, because when the executives happen to see
They'll
the
see
daily,
it.
they might see
Oh, for
they
God's
want to
sakes.
see you working.
Good Lord.
Yeah, but the whole idea of the lack of discipline in terms of these are the selected takes that we will then work from. My whole thing was, let me get 2 printed takes, we move on.
Yeah.
3 if it's difficult,
Yeah.
complicated. But that's it. And for editorial's got enough to deal with. But now, it's like the assistant editor who's cataloging everything, looking at everything, they're making decisions. It's like,
Yeah.
because the producers,
They
I don't
can't-
want to see
They can't show everything.
real time. Watch the
Oh, yeah,
5 times real time.
Well, and the other part of it, by the way, is we'll finish a 12 or 14-hour day, and then our loader will be sitting on the truck downloading stuff forever because it's real time, and there's just so much stuff shot. It's definitely changed things. I say often, there's this thing of like, let's shoot the rehearsal, maybe magic will happen. And I always think, you know what the magic is? The magic is that we're really good at our jobs, but it's probably not going to work out anyway because we don't know what we're doing anyway, which is why we rehearse.
Right. Right.
But there's that weird thing. So, well, this has been really fantastic listening to these stories and everything you've done. You've done a couple of things. One or two. So the question I leave everybody with is, someone who's getting into the business, someone who's like a young operator trying to move up, anything like that, what advice do you have for them in order to succeed?
It's delicate because they have to serve many masters,
Mhm.
and what you talk about to me, it's to be very sensitive about the cast, but to not be intimidated. If you just don't march up and start yapping, but sort of suss out who will be open to a communication, because really being perceptive about what's going on with the actors is so important. I mean, and if you as an operator can sort of just get, this person needs a minute, and or like I told you, the operator who said to me, when you say print, they relax. That kind of observation, that kind of understanding about, what we're here to do is get the best out of this person. And there's so much, I get it. There's so much jealousy, hostility, and just being infuriated by the narcissism and the indulgence and all that. But ultimately, if they look good, we look good. And so I used to, when I was doing the non-union movies, when I first started, I found that there would be this sort of hostility from the crew to the cast. So I would pick someone who, the leader of the crew, and I give them a small part. Could do that once I was doing it, but I'd put them in front of the camera, just an extra, a glorified extra role or whatever, just to put them in that position, just to show them this is what's being asked of you. It's like everything's going on, and then suddenly we hit the sticks, and now it's on you, and you got to deliver. You got to put a little piece of yourself up there, because there's so much to just someone on set. It appears like there's so much is devoted to the vanity of the actors.
Yeah.
They're in makeup, they're in wardrobe, there are all these people fussing around them, and plus they have assistants and whatever goes on, and that's so. But it's not understanding like what's at the core of this is this courage. I mean, Roger Corman used to say, "Take an acting class." He would have he recommended it to anyone that wanted to get into the business, take an acting class, so you could just at least experience it yourself and hear about what they're concerned with. For an operator to understand they're the most important crew member in terms of relating to the actors.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.